Rhys dwi'n gweithio i Menter Môn ar y cynllun arloesi Gwynedd Wledig. Dwi'n mynd i na i rannu sgrin efo chi wan, jyst i gael yng nghyflwyniad efo chi. Fi di'r swyddog sydd wedi bod yn gweithio ar y prosiect Ceir Trydan Cymunedol. Na jyst rhoi bach o egwyr efo chi o be ydy arloesi Gwynedd Wledig. So, ni sy'n gyfrifol am redeg y rhaglen Leader yma yng Ngwynedd. Mae Leader yn eich arbennig o ddatblygu lleol mewn ardaloedd gwledig, a mae'n gynllun sydd wedi cael ei gyllido gan Llywodraeth Cymru ac yr Undeb Ewropeaidd. Efo prosiectau cynlluniau arloesi, mae yna bwyslais ar treialu a peilota datrysiadau mwyn dysgu a rhannu y wybodaeth yma wedyn efo cymunedau a grwpiau ar draws Gwynedd. Felly yn gryno, mae Leader yn ceisio cefnogi ymatebion arloesol i heriau sy'n cael eu gwynebu yma yng Ngwynedd. Felly, fel yn dweud, fi di'r swyddog sy'n gweithio ar y prosiect Ceir Trydan Cymunedol. Efo'r prosiect yma, mi oedd na ddau brif amcan. Y gyntaf oedd bod ni'n treialu model ceir cymunedol mewn cymunedau gwledig yng Ngwynedd. Felly, oedden ni eisiau gwybod os fysa ceir cymunedol yn gallu helpu bobl sydd wedi ynysu oherwydd diffyg trafnidiaeth cyhoeddus. Oedden ni eisiau gweld os oedd yn opsiwn i teuluoedd oedd ddim ond efo un car ac eisiau ail gar. Ac hefyd oedden ni eisiau gweld os oedd hi'n bosib creu tîm o wirfoddolwyr fydda'n gallu cynnig gwasanaethau danfon i fynd â bobl i apwyntiadau meddygol, i siopa neu i ddigwyddiadau cymdeithasol. So, ac wedyn yr ail amcan oedd bod ni'n codi ymwybyddiaeth o Ceir Trydan a hyrwyddo opsiynau trafnidiaeth gynaliadwy. Felly, fel ydych chi gyd yn gwybod, dwi'n siŵr, mae dros y 10 mlynedd dwytha, mae yna gynnydd mawr wedi bod mewn Ceir Trydan ar lonydd y wlad. Yn amlwg mae Ceir Trydan yn fwy effeithlon na ceir petrol a diesel. Ac yn ddiweddar mae Boris wedi dweud bod yr ban o werthu ceir petrol a diesel wedi dod ymlaen i'r flwyddyn 2030, yn golygu bod gennyn ni ddegawd i Ceir Trydan gymryd. Felly, oedden ni jyst dangos i bobl bod Ceir Trydan yn gallu bod yn opsiwn iddyn nhw. Ac i drio cael gwarad o rei o'r misconceptions sydd yna efo Ceir Trydan. Lot o bobl yn teimlo'n bryderus weithio efo Ceir Trydan o ran faint o bell maen nhw'n gallu trafeilio cyn bod nhw'n gorfod chargio. So, oedden ni eisiau wneud Ceir Trydan yn normaleiddio nhw. Felly, be nathon ni oedd prydlesu 2 Nissan Leaf gwbl trydanol gan gwmni ar enw Co-Wheels. Mae Co-Wheels yn glwb ceir cenedlaethol a maen nhw'n ddarparu'r fleet vehicles ar gyfer y sector cyhoeddus. A Co-Wheels sydd wedi bod yn gyfrifol am yswiriant ac yr system bwcio'r ceir ar-lein a falle. Os chi'n gweld yn y llun yma, lun o Carwyn a Carwen, wnaethon ni ddod fyny efo'r enw yna ar ôl cystadleuaeth ar ein gwefannau cymdeithasol ni, ac Carwyn a Carwen nath ddod i'r brig. Mae bod nhw'n siwtio'r ceir yn briliant lol. Wedyn, gwyliau ha 2019 nathon ni wneud galwad agorad allan i drio dod o hyd i 2 gymuned fysa'n cymeryd Carwyn a Carwen am flwyddyn i dreialu yn amlwg o'r ochr rhannu ceir ac i gael car trydan yn eu cymuned nhw. Y 2 gymuned llwyddiannus oedd criw Bethesda, sef partneriaeth Ogwen, a criw egni Abergynolwyn yn Abergynolwyn. Mae wedi bod y flwyddyn diddorol, yn enwedig y flwyddyn yma, lle gafodd eu cynlluniau nhw i newid oherwydd Covid, lle, ond mi fuodd y ceir dal yn gallu gwasanaethu yr ardal sydd wedi bod yn briliant. Felly fel yn dweud, mae'r flwyddyn gyntaf wedi dod i ben. Mis Medi nath ni wneud galwad agorad arall i ddod o hyd i 2 gymuned newydd, ac y 2 gymuned llwyddiannus ydy Abergynolwyn yn Llanaelhaearn a siop Griffiths yn Benygroes. Felly, da ni'n edrych ymlaen yn fawr i gael cydweithio hefo y 2 gymuned yma. Mae criw'r ail flwyddyn wedi bod mewn gyswllt hefo'r flwyddyn gyntaf mwyn cael bach o top tips, be nath fynd yn dda, be nath ddim mynd mor dda. Felly mae'r cyswllt yna wedi cael ei wneud. Fe gawn ni glwad mwy gyda nhw yn y webinar yma. Felly dyna fo cyflwyniad i'r prosiect yn gyffredinol genna i. Dwi'n mynd i basio chi ymlaen rwan i Glyn ac Amy. Mae Glyn ac Amy wedi bod yn cydweithio fyny ar y prosiect yma. Maen nhw wedi bod yn cynnig cymorth arbenigol rili o'r dechrau. Ac mae'r 2 ohonyn nhw'n angerddol iawn am Ceir Trydan. Felly, na i stopio fan rwan. Gyda llaw, os ydych chi efo cwestiynau, dyn ni am gael 10 munud, chwarter awr ar ddiwedd y webinar i chi allu gofyn eich cwestiynau i pwy bynnag sydd yn siarad yma heno. Felly, na i basio chi draw i Glyn ac Amy rwan.
Helo pawb.
Diolch Rhys. So we're just going to quickly run through a few details about the cars and some highlight stats from year 1. But yeah, I'm Amy and this is Lynn, and as Rhys said, we're both EV drivers, so feel free to ask us any questions at the end or through the chat. Cool.
I'm going to share our screen now. We've got a couple of slides here. Can everyone see that? So this is a few statistics from the report that we made from the first year when the car was with the 2 previous communities.
Right, so the cars are 40 kilowatt-hour Nissan Leafs, so have a range of up to 150 miles, depending on weather conditions and driving style. So a big question for us at the start of the project was whether people would drive their cars within their range, kind of for local journeys. An example of that would be a round trip to Carwyn from Abergynolwyn, or whether people would do kind of longer journeys and choose to charge the car up en route using the public charging network. And an example of that would be someone heading down from Abergynolwyn to Swansea. So these are 2 maps showing where the cars went over the first year of the project. So as you can see, they definitely left the local areas. Carwen in Bethesda especially travelled quite far, heading up to Scotland, down to South Wales and across into kind of Nottingham in England. So yeah, as you saw from the maps, there were some very long journeys there. The longest one being 729 miles. That was the one heading up to Scotland, which was done by Hugh from Partnereth Ogwen. But members of the general public were also hiring it out and doing kind of 500-mile trips as well. However, on average, people were driving the car around 80 miles on a single trip. If you look at the histogram on the right-hand side, the most popular trip distance was in that 5-mile to 55-mile bracket, and then the kind of second most popular, the 55 miles to 100 miles. So both of those categories are well within the car's range. So most people weren't needing to be thinking about charging during their trip.
It was quite surprising to see actually the number of people who were willing to take the car further than its range and use the public rapid charge network, which takes about 30 to 40 minutes to charge it up. But people were willing to have a charging stop to add to use the car to go long distance, just either to save money or to lower their carbon footprint of longer trips. So that was really encouraging to see, and actually we'll see now some of the stats with regards to how much of the charging was actually done away from home, which was actually a fair bit, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, well, sorry. Well, next is just total miles. The car was driven during the whole year, so combined it was 13,700 miles. The majority of that was in the kind of the first few months pre-pandemic. But you can see, if things are continued, that would be quite set to do quite a lot of mileage. Shows they were used well during those early days. In regards to bookings, there was kind of 200 bookings combined for the vehicles, and again it was those early months that were the most popular. So you can see in the graph on the right, the cars were getting around kind of 15 bookings each per month from members of the public.
You see the graph stops in February because there was no bookings in March. But as we'll mention, the car was used by the communities for local deliveries and things.
In regards to how long people were booking the cars out for, on average it was kind of 10-11 hours, so people were taking the car for kind of pretty much a full day. The people were also booking it out for multiple days at a time, so they could have a bit of time with the car or go on those longer trips. And then final point was just around kind of carbon savings. The energy used from the cars resulted in 2.75 times less CO2 being emitted than a kind of similar size combustion car. And then this is a photo showing the car plugged in at the library in Bethesda. So actual emissions will have been even lower since some of the energy was being provided.
Yeah, the main reason for this is that electric vehicles and batteries are so much more efficient. The round trip efficiency is more like about 80 to 90% compared to a combustion car. It's about 10 to 15%. And also the grid now is we're generating a lot more renewable energy. So even if you just plug into a standard socket, from the grid, you're getting up to like 50, 60% renewable energy. But obviously it's even better in Bethesda because we have solar panels fitted. Carwen got solar panels fitted on the roof there where the car was located. So some days Carwen will get a totally zero carbon charge, which is fantastic. That's what excites me about EVs. They give us a pathway to being totally zero carbon. We're not quite there yet, but they allow us to get quite a way along that journey.
Cool. Well, so those were just a couple of highlights, as Ben said, from the report. If anyone wants to delve deeper into the report, that's available on the LOIC's website. But otherwise, we'll hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hyw, ti'n... Peth bach o gair am profwch chi, ia? Briled, diolch.
Champion, diolch Nes. Ia, helo bob sydd chi. Dwi'n dall na fo'n 5 munud sgyn ni, so dwi am wybio drwyddo. Diolch yn fawr i Glyn ac Emi, maen nhw wedi bod yn dda iawn. Dwi'n gweld Glyn fel fersiwn fengach o Neil, ond fo, mae hwnna'n stori arall. Yn dysgu ni am y Ceir Trydan, gwerth chweil. Da ni wedi cael addysg go iawn. Fel ddod i ddweud, oedd y car yn cael ei ddefnyddio ar gyfer cymysgedd o bethau. Mae gynnon ni beth sa'ch chi'n cael o'n cwsmeriad eitha preifat, bobl yn mynd i siopa neu i wneud negas dolig enghraifft, pobl defnyddio fynd i gyfarfodydd, cynghorwyr lleol diwsio, so oedd o'n agoriad llygad yn hynny o beth. Githon ni hefyd un beth sy'n neb di sôn am, githon ni fwy nag un defnyddiwr, oedd isio mynd â Carwen dramor, hynny ddifyr o'n i'n gweld, oedd rwy'n isio mynd â hir Almaen yma lle, ond oherwydd yr yswiriant oedden ni methu, so ella sa hwnna'n rhywbeth i'r dyfodol lle. Ond yn amlwg nath Covid effeithio ar yn gwaith ni, oedden ni'n gwneud dipyn o waith, oedden ni'n gweld yn rôl ni godi ymwybyddiaeth, oedden ni'n mynd i ysgolion ag ati, oedden ni'n mynd at grwpiau'r sgowtiad, gwneud dipyn o math yna beth lle. Oedden ni'n gweld y cyfle yna, wnaethon ni golli rhywfaint yn efo herwydd sefyllfa Covid, wnaethon ni golli amser, oedden ni'n gorfod tynnu'r car oddi ar ddefnydd i'r cyhoedd, ond be wnaethon ni wedyn oedd defnyddio fo i bwrpas cadwyn ogwen, lle da ni'n danfon bwydydd a creffta cynhyrchwyr lleol o fewn y dyffryn. A hyd yn hyn, mae'r prosiect hwnnw wedi cadw 5,000 o bunna o werth yn yr economi leol. Oce, mae Carwen newydd yn gadael ni. A joban ola Carwen ar dydd Iau cyn iddi fynd i Benygroes oedd gwneud y ryn cyntaf ni ar pryd ar glyd. Da ni'n gweithio fo caffi lleol i wneud hynny hefyd. So oedd o'n neis medru cyfuno y carbon isal a'r bwyd lleol. Wedyn, da ni'n sôn mae gennym ni prosiect yn cychwyn o'n Dyffryn Gwyrdd 2 blynedd o arian loteri. A un o'r spin-offs mewn ffordd o benithon ni o Carwen, mi fydd gynnon ni gar Trydan, oedd hwnnw ar y gweill cyn i Carwen ddwad mewn ffordd. Ond be mod i alluogi ni wneud ydy dysgu cymaint am geir Trydan. Cos o'n i fel rhan fwyaf bobl ddim yn gwybod ar y cychwyn bod y car yn automatic er enghraifft. O'n i'n mynd all hynny, mae lot o bobl o'n i'n gwybod hynny wedyn. Mae hwnna di agor yn llygad ni, ond da ni wedi rwan archebu car Trydan cymunedol arall fydd yn rhedag fatha sy'n digwydd ym Mhen Llŷn gyn Wil o ddrws i ddrws fel car cymunedol, a hwnnw di addasu ar gyfer cadarolwyn. So da ni'n defnyddio hwnna, ond da ni'n gobeithio hefyd bod ni'n medru mynd gam ymhellach a heb ddeud gormod, da ni'n gobeithio bod ni'n medru efelychu benithon ni fo Carwen a cael car cymunedol arall ar gyfer y dyffryn. Ac yn y pen draw, ella bod ni'n sbio ar fuddsoddi mewn mwy o geir, achos mae Carwen wedi bod yn abwyd mewn ffordd i bobl weld y cyfle, a mae gennym ni bobl yn dweud, dwi'n mynd eisiau gymaint ar y car, neu feddwl am gar Trydan tro nesa, neu bobl wedi defnyddio mwy o feic Trydan yn sgil dysgu am y posibiliadau. Wedyn, mod i bod yn hynod ddifyr i feddwl na peilota rhannu dysgu, dwi'n meddwl, oedd ar ochr y car, de. Wedyn, da ni wedi peilota fo, da ni wedi dysgu lot, a gobeithio bod ni wedi rhannu ni gynhadledd o ddim i'n sôn, ni gynhadledd leader yn yr Alban, a dreifio fyny fanno yn y car Trydan, wedyn cael y cyfle i rannu fo gyfeillion ledled Ewrop o brosiectau, a da ni wedi cyfarfod pobl yr Iseldiroedd y Gwlad Belg, ond sbiwch, dwi'n gwybod mae yna bobl eraill am siarad, so unrhyw gwestiynau dwi'n fwy na bodlon, a os ddim heno mae croeso i chi gysylltu a fi'n uniongyrchol i holi chi.
Brilliant, diolch Will. Steve, do you want to say a few words about your experience with the car?
Nos wrtho pawb, Steve Peter Abergynolwyn yma. Rhaid i mi siarad yn Saesneg achos dwi ddim yn gallu siarad a meddwl ar yr un amser. Evening everybody. We had the car for a year. It was I'm going to say it was a successful year despite COVID. The car was well received in the village initially. People were really interested. There was a lot. I mean, there was some negativity about the car. People weren't sure about electric cars and why they were necessary or anything. So again, like you said, there was a big learning curve. You know, as people, we did a big opening ceremony where we had Hugh was there to speak, and we did took people out in the car, gave them test drives. That seemed to overcome a lot of barriers, and so people started to use the car. It was a really, really nice car to drive. Just press your pedal to go and stop, and so it was, automatic, so dead easy to drive. And I think we had a few people who were genuinely surprised how nice the car was to drive, really, and how simple it was to drive, and beautifully quiet and efficient. And so it got a fair bit of use. We had people travelling all over Wales. Lots of the ladies in the village started using it for shopping trips. We had kids trips out to gymnastics, the scouts, and whatever. So yeah, it's really popular. Unfortunately, COVID happened in March, so that kind of put a stop to the bookings. But we were able to use the car alongside the village pub to do meals on wheels around the community. So even then, we were able to make use of the car. There was less, people were less keen to be sharing the vehicle, and that was the same in the last few weeks of the project, I think. But generally, it was a really positive thing. I think that's it.
Yeah, brilliant. Diolch. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so yeah, you've had the kind of heard about what happened in the first year of the project, the experiences of both the communities. we're going to move on now to Maggie from South Denbighshire Community Partnership. They run a car sharing model in their area. So I'll pass you over to Maggie now so she can tell you more about that. You're on mute, Maggie.
Beg your pardon, sorry about that. It's no good. Yeah, it's on Maggie. Yes, I'm part of a much bigger project. Really, it's a whole community situation. So I'm going to sort of share some slides with you, if that's okay. Sorry. Okay, South Denbighshire Community Partnership is our vision is to be part of an empowered, healthy and thriving community where everyone belongs. And our mission for that is to promote social welfare and community well-being, support the advancement of education and training, to work with the local community for the development of the Welsh language and culture, provide facilities for recreation and leisure, and provide access to transport. So you can see I'm just one small part of quite a big cog. We do all sorts of things at the centre. We have citizens advice, community activities, part of an energy local project that matches electricity use with power from the local hydro. And then the part at the bottom is me, Meals on Wheels, Dial Ride. We have a community bus and of course our electric car club. And there she is, that's Nellie. That's Nellie, she's a beautiful car. We had funding from Carwyn. This was back in October 2018, so we're actually 2 years into our project. And it was one of the forefront of the community electric cars. Again, I completely understand with the last speaker who was talking about the real interest of having this vehicle in the centre. Lots of people loved to have a look at it. But our take-up, unfortunately, has not been great. We were given the funding as a 3-year feasibility study. And in fact, within 1 year, it was found that what was the demand in Carwen was Dial-A-Ride, Meals on Wheels, and more community-based things than the private hire. For some reason, they weren't engaging with that. So rather than have her sit there idle when she wasn't being hired out, we got permission to rearrange the funding so that she could take part in Dial-A-Ride and all the other projects that we have. We already had Tanya there on the left, Tanya Toyota. So that was Nellie the Nissan. This is Tanya the Toyota, who's an hybrid with funding from the National Lottery. And she used to do Dial-A-Ride and Meals on Wheels. But when demand outstripped that, we got funding from Morrison's Foundation for our Peugeot, Percy the Peugeot, with a heated van and fridge inside. Dial-A-Ride membership doubled in a year. We've now got 42 members. And the Meals on Wheels just recently has gone up to sort of 62 meals a week over a 5-day period. So it's very good. And we're now able to expand our services into Llanaelhaearn. So how do we, one of the things that I was asked to do is about engaging with volunteers to chat about and how we adapted to the COVID. I have to say our team is hugely passionate about the community. By working together, we were able to quickly adapt our services during COVID. So electric car club, Dial-A-Ride, that sort of demand almost disappeared and dried up immediately. And it became obvious that we had to use our cars to deliver products rather than people. So as I said, the Meals on Wheels demand soared. We started delivering prescriptions and shopping to the vulnerable, shielding householders. We set up a befriending service, a buddy chat telephone service to our members. Demand for food bank parcels went through the roof. as people were already on a minimum wage, and as they were made redundant or put on furlough, they were no longer to afford food bills. So they were given the food bank parcels, which usually tend to be tin food and dried food. So we supplemented those with cleaning products and fresh food hampers. And Nellie was very much instrumental in doing all of this. It all required a lot of more emergency funding and required a complete service review and risk assessments. But the team is led by Margaret Sutherland, who recently received an MBE for her services to the community during COVID. Together, we've been able to adapt our services to the needs of the community. So, our volunteers. The main issue we faced was many of our very valued existing drivers were over 70 themselves or had underlying medical conditions, which meant that they had to shield. Our main engagement with volunteers was by word of mouth and Facebook. It always has been. At the beginning of COVID, we made a plea for people to come and help, and many came who were on furlough, who were able to deliver food, prescriptions, shopping, food bank parcels, and craft packs as well. And all these people had to be processed with DBS checking and training. But after the first major lockdown, many of them went back to work, and dial-a-ride demand started to rise again, and the Meals on Wheels service continued to escalate as everyone told everybody else about it. So some of our existing drivers who had supported the community for many years chose not to return either. So we were in a bit of a mixture of what do we do. Now, I can't express how strong it is to feed to your community through Facebook, because we did this plea again for drivers, and we got eight people came forward. The individual reasons for volunteering are as diverse as their personalities. We have one lady whose husband died the year after he retired. Previously, he'd been a busy manager of a technical plant, but refused to do anything in his retirement, and she attributes that to his early death. She therefore wants to keep as busy as possible. She enrolled in a university course and wanted to help out in the community. Others have downsized or semi-retired and just want to keep busy. Some are attracted by driving an electric car, and it was a great draw. 3 or 4 of the guys said, "Oh, that's why I came." Some have moved to the area and want to get to know the community and area better. And there's no better way than driving around villages delivering Meals on Wheels or picking people up for medical appointments, etc. So we try to keep our volunteers as motivated as possible. They all have access to training from time to time. For example, dementia awareness, first aid, things like that. I hold quarterly driver meetings where we all get together for lunch and a natter. And we hold an annual summer party for them as well. They are so valued. So this all helps to keep volunteers engaged. The other important aspect is the lovely feedback they receive from the users. For example, one of our retired users pre-COVID would catch the bus to Carwen most days and sit outside the local cafe having a good old chinwag with whoever he could engage with. But he had to shield during the long lockdown and lost all his confidence, and he was quite depressed. So we rang him each week and delivered shopping, but have now coaxed him out again with dial-a-ride service 3 times a week. And it's great to see him back in his place outside the cafe. We have another chap who's blind and diabetic. He's now been receiving Meals on Wheels, and his healthcare practitioner says that not only is his diabetes under control, but he has undergone a personality change, for the better, I might add. Volunteers are our lifeblood, and we cannot function without them. We could have all the funding, but at the end of the day, if it's them that go out and do the job. So the way we engage the most, I would say, is through Facebook, being really active and promoting everything you do so heavily with Facebook. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Maggie. yeah, as I said, if you've got any questions for Maggie, you could just, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a chance to do a Q&A. So, yeah, if you've got a question, save it for the end of the webinar. Maggie, is it okay if you stop? Oh, I think I can do it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so rwan yn basio symud ymlaen I Neil Lewis sydd yn gweithio I Trydan. Felly, ia, drosodd I chi, Neil.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you so much, and what a great get together tonight. I'm actually very grateful because we haven't got any car clubs, electric vehicle car clubs in North Wales, so I'm learning a great deal as I did in last year's event. So this is me. I actually work for Cymunedau Energy, but also do a lot of work for Trydan. I'll explain what that's all about. If you're on Twitter, have a look at Low Carbon Lewis. That's where all the action happens. So just give you a quick background of what I've been doing for the last 10 years. A bit like many others on this call or other people, we've been working in the community energy sector, and you know, we've all got the scars to prove it, haven't we? Really, it's not easy building wind turbines, and obviously that terrible news about hydro schemes today, and it's been a challenging time. But you know, we've had some success, and there's our lovely 500 kilowatt wind turbine near Llanaelhaearn, which we've got 200 members who own that. And we've also been successful in putting some solar panels on some buildings, though as we all know, working with the local authority can be challenging as well, which is part of the problems. But during all this time of striving to build renewable energy projects because of climate change and because of fuel poverty, we also started looking at energy efficiency, of course, naturally. And one of the most, obviously we went into LED lighting and what have you for community buildings and our offices, and we're advising private businesses on energy efficiency projects. But one of the best energy efficiency thing we came across was, of course, electric vehicles. Because as Glyn and Amy were explaining earlier, the internal combustion engines had a really good run, and you know, it's been a great 110 years or however long it's had the field to itself. But it's a very inefficient form of converting chemical energy into kinetic energy, really, for forward motion. So as Glyn was saying, the best they can get is 20–25%, and probably most cars are below that. Whereas with an electric car, when you put energy into the battery, a good 85–90% of that electricity goes to forward motion. So lots of people involved in the community energy sector migrated towards electric vehicles. So I'll give you a potted history of my electric vehicle. I'll go back to the previous slide briefly. You can see this is the host community of our wind turbine in Salem, the village near Llanaelhaearn. And we wanted to obviously make a contribution to them for hosting our wind turbine. Not entirely popular wind turbines, I think a lot of you know that already, sadly. The local village hall wanted to do something, and they had private meetings, wouldn't talk to us because we were the wind turbine people, even though we're a community energy organisation. And they came up with tarmacking the local fields so they can have a bigger car park. But obviously we encouraged them to think about renewables. And so what we've done with the village hall is put 10 kilowatts of PV, 5 kilowatt hours of battery, so it powers their lights in the evening. But obviously we sneaked a charge point on there as well, a fast charge point. And, you know, so anyone in the village can charge their car for free. Not that anyone does, but, you know, that's another story. So this is my history with electric vehicles. You can see the one on the bottom left is the Citroen C0. That was my first car. Do you know, in 2011, they were going for £35,000, and they only had a 14.5 kilowatt hour battery. So you had a range with the wind behind you and good weather of about 70 miles. Lovely little cars, but when I ended up working, travelling across Wales for Robert Owen Bank, working with the community energy sector, it was quite scary, you know, travelling in a car with such a short range. I spent a lot of time in Awdurdod Wales charging my car. And then my next car was the white one there. These are all these photographs are taken at National Trust property near Llanaelhaearn in Ewrop Park. And the white one, Nissan Leaf, was the 24 kilowatt hour, which was a far more grown-up car than the Citroen, to be honest, and had a range more like 85, 90 miles on a good day. And the red one is the car I've currently got. I've had it for 4 years now, and obviously that's a Nissan Leaf 30 kilowatt hour. So with the 30 kilowatt hour, you get 100 miles out of it fairly comfortably on most occasions, except in sub-zero temperatures. And then, of course, I had to slip in. This is my wife picking up her car. My wife works 50 miles away, or 40 odd miles away. And so when she takes my car to work, it's quite stressful. She has to drive slower and be careful and watch the gauge dropping. Whereas the car she has now, the Hyundai Kona 64 kilowatt hour, has obviously got a range of, high 200s, if not 300 miles on a good day. And so it just goes to show over the last 9 years that we've been driving electric vehicles, how much electric vehicles have improved really with the battery technology and indeed the battery size. And so with being someone who's driven electric cars across Wales, length and breadth, I became a bit like the whinger in chief really for the community energy sector. I kept getting invited to events in Cardiff to talk about electric vehicles in Wales, and the lack of charging infrastructure, as was and is still certainly a factor that we're still trying to deal with, and we're having some success with that. We'll be glad to hear. So we started as Carmarthenshire Energy installing charge points in various locations. This is Excel Bowl in Carmarthen, which is owned by Towie Community Church. And they do incredible work, a bit like Maggie was describing in Carwen. In Carwen, sorry, they do food banks and recycling and lots of community projects. They're a cafe, so we've put a PV on their roof, and we've got the charge point there. And what we realised was a lot of the community energy organisations, excuse me, bit of cramp. A lot of the community energy organisations we're putting their own charge points in, because building wind turbines is a bit difficult, particularly at the moment in the post-subsidy regime we have at the moment. So this is where the idea of Trydan came from, really. It's a cooperative of community energy cooperatives and other community organisations. And we're trying to build a pan-Wales network of charge points that are actually owned within the community and keep the profits and the benefits for the community, and teaches skills within the local colleges and employs local trades to maintain, operate and install. And Glyn's been really helpful, Grant's been helpful, and others in trying to develop that, and we're making progress. Watch this space. We're hoping for some good news very soon. We're working closely with Transport for Wales as well. So hopefully Trydan will become a part of your lives in the next few years. Other work we've been doing is working with the local authority. We have an electric vehicle charge point coordinator, Gareth Tucker, and he's helped develop a policy for the local authority. And what happens with local authorities, something changes when they get an enthusiast within the department. And there's a guy within the department who drives, it's his red Nissan Leaf charging in Carmarthen there in the middle of those three. And he's an enthusiast. So Gareth and he have worked together to garner some more funds and more capacity for installing charge points. One interesting thing was this is some of the first charge points we installed. The one at the top is in Newcastle Emlyn, because I thought that was on the way. If you're going from Carmarthen or Swansea up north, it's a stepping stone. And then the one at the top is Carmarthen, the one at the bottom is Newcastle Emlyn. And when we raised the funds through LEADER again, to install those charge points, we did the applications and what have you. Two things became apparent. One was that the local authority didn't have any capacity to do this work, so that's why we employed an EV charge point coordinator. But also, as soon as we'd raised the money, they awarded the contract to a company that's based in England. And I know it's Pod Point, and I know we've all been working with Pod Point different times. But what we're finding is when they do fail, when a Zoe trips the trip switch or something, Pod Point take weeks, if not months, to come and repair it. And Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue have had a similar experience. So again, that strengthens the idea of having a Welsh-based company with Welsh skills locally so we can repair them and make sure they're reliable. So, you know, when there's a paucity of charge points and you're traveling, the last thing you want to do, as Grant Peasley would testify, and others I'm sure, is turn up when the charge point is out of action. And obviously there's lots of advantages with electric vehicles. Energy efficiency we've touched upon, but obviously there aren't any tailpipe emissions, and that's because there is no tailpipe. And obviously this is a factor, you know, because it's odd to think, but all the towns in Carmarthenshire, Ammanford, Llandeilo, and others, they're all failing the air quality standards very heavily, and recent studies have shown how damaging that is, you know, to people's health. Amy and Glyn lent me a slide which was really helpful about charging basics, and I won't dwell on it too long, but if there's any questions we can come back to it. So with Carwen and Carwen, sorry, we can charge it in 3 different ways really, basically. You could use your 3-pin plug at home, what I call the granny cable, you know, the really slow, no offense to any grandmothers here tonight. And the reason I use the granny cable is that I've got 3 kilowatts of PV, west-facing solar panels, and so when I'm putting 2 kilowatts plus into the grid on a sunny afternoon well, all year round, I can use the granny cable to harness all that energy and put it into the car, so that you know, I'm not just putting it into the grid. So that's great. And obviously, if you use the granny cable, it only charges at 9 miles per hour, so it's great for overnight. In the case of your cars that you're having for the car club, it'll take, you know, 16 hours to charge from 0. That's assuming you turn up on 0. Most of the time you turn up on 50% or whatever it might be. Then obviously with your dedicated charge points, but like in the middle picture, you've got something more like 7 kilowatts, which is what we call a fast charger, and that charges, you know, you notice the difference. It's 3 times as fast at 7 kilowatts, 6.6 kilowatts. And one little tip I just put as a reminder is I'm on the Octopus Go tariff. I know Glyn and Amy are on the Octopus Agile tariff. And when you charge overnight, you can, with the Go tariff, for 4 hours between 12:30 and 4:30, you're paying 5 pence per unit. So I can program the cars to charge between 12:30 and 4:30. It ends up as a penny a mile, but also it tends to be green energy overnight as well, because obviously when wind turbines are generating, then obviously the electricity is not being used. You can put it into your car instead and helps balance the grid as well. And then obviously we won't dwell too much about rapid chargers, but there's a lovely picture that Amy and Glyn have lent me of Llandovery charge point, and that will charge at 50 kilowatts. So if the battery is big enough, you get 200 miles per hour, and it's just enough time to use the loo and go for a coffee. So when you do plan on traveling further afield, and please do, I know some people use PlugShare. I use ZapMap, and you can have a play with ZapMap on your computer at home before you leave and plan your journey carefully. And there's filters on board, so you can filter it for rapids only, which is what you need on a long journey with CHAdeMO on your car. And obviously this is the charge point in Cletor. So you plan your journey in such a way, I would recommend that you don't arrive at the only charge point in the village on 0 or on 4% or something. You've got to have plan B and C in place, really. So you might want to arrive at the Cletor with you know, 20 to 30% left. So if it doesn't work, or if there's any problems, or it's being used or whatever, or you can't access it because someone's parked over it, you've got plan B to go to the one in Aberystwyth, etc. And I put this slide together from last year, and I'm really glad to say that the situation has already improved. You can see this is one I took yesterday of rapid charges across Wales. And you notice there's quite a few on the M4 corridor, Southeast Wales, as you'd expect. So that's pretty safe and sound. Quite a few on the A55 and the very top of North Wales. You can see they follow a ribbon on the A49 as well, quite nicely in England. But the big problem we're having, and what Trydan is trying to address at the moment, is there's a bit of a knot spot in the middle of Wales. You know, it's not great. And the worry is that, you know, you arrive at the Cletwr or you arrive at the Metropole in Llandrindod, or the one in Aberystwyth University apparently is reliably unreliable if you read the things on Zap Map. The one in Llandyfri is there. I'm pointing, you can't see that I'm pointing. But you know, Mid Wales is a bit more fraught when you're trying to travel and stretch the range to its maximum. Now back to happier times. Obviously this was Abergynolwyn last year, the launch. It's already been mentioned. I think it was such a joyous day, as was Bethesda the day before. And remember when we could actually mix together and speak to each other. But I think this is a great project, you know, and the advantages have already been touched upon, haven't they, really, that people are getting the opportunity to try electric vehicles and realise that there's nothing to be scared of and that they are actually better to drive than your classic internal combustion engine. So for all of you who are able to take part in this project, please do. I mean, you all know how quickly a year goes by, but you know, we don't know what the year holds really, but if you have an opportunity to use these cars, give it a go. You won't regret it, because once you go to electric, the studies show that most people who change to electric cars, 95% never go back to internal combustion engines. So be warned, it's quite addictive. It's a good way to travel, and be careful. I mean, I was a dentist in a former life, and as dentists tend to do, I used to drive sports cars, you know, BMW 2-seaters and things. And I tell you, I swear these cars are much nicer to drive than any sports car I've ever driven, because all the power comes on as soon as you leave a roundabout, go down the road a little bit, look in your rearview mirror, and the internal combustion engine cars haven't even moved. And I've been doing it for 9 years now, and it still amazes me. And things like, you know, if you're going up through the middle of Wales and there's a lorry or something in front of you, I think, oh, I better plan to overtake safely, and where's the next straight and things, and you've got to make sure you're not in 6th, 5th, 4th or 3rd. You know, you've got to get your gears right. With these cars, you think about overtaking and you pass them. You know, they really do feel safe, much safer. Obviously, you still got to be sensible, but be careful. So yeah, here are my contact details. As I say, I'm really grateful to be here tonight, and I'm learning from yourselves with this great project. But anything you need to know at all that I can help with, or any of my colleagues can help with, please get in touch. Have a look at our website, Trydani's website, chargeplacewales.org. I was saying before we started that we have 3 sites in Gwynedd that we're trying to develop. Two of them are on Gwynedd County Council land, and Gareth Harrison, my colleague, is working with Grant to try and develop them. And as ever, the speed of deployment is a bit frustrating. So if anyone knows any way, if you can push your county councillors to work with Trydani to develop community-owned rapid charge points in Carnarvon, Abergynolwyn, and all the profit made will stay within the community, I'd be very grateful for your help. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Diolch yn fawr.
Yes, sir.
Rhaid i gytuno efo Neil, mae dreifio'r ceir yn braf. Bob tro dwi'n cael chance i wneud, dwi'n wrth y modd yn cael wneud. So nesa mae gennym ni criw y cymunedau sy'n cymryd rhan yn ail flwyddyn y prosiect, sef criw Llanaelhaearn a criw Benygroes. Felly, dwi'n gwybod pwy sy'n cychwyn. Llyr, ti eisiau cychwyn i jyst sôn am beth i gynllunio chi am y flwyddyn nesaf, beth ydych chi'n gwneud efo Carwyn?
Diolch, Chris. Mae criw da yma wedi troi fyny mae hyn yma. Do'n i wedi disgwyl siarad ymlaen bob dy gwirth eich. Ond, da ni falch iawn bod ni wedi cael y car am y flwyddyn. Swn i'n dweud chydig bach o hanes yr antur sefydlwyd o'n bron i hanner 100 mlynedd yn ôl wan, yn 1974. Bwriad yr antur di cael gwella safon byw pobl Llanaelhaearn a cyffiniau bob pwrpas. Boed hynny trwy eu llesiant nhw, gwella'u tai nhw, gwella'u cyfleoedd gwaith. Un o'r prif amcanion pan nathon ni wneud y cais oedd i helpu bobl i fynd i waith a cynyddu'r cyfleoedd gan bobl ifanc yn arbennig i drafeilio i'r gwaith a ehangu i gorwelio nhw. Ond hefyd, bod nhw'n defnyddio'r car ar gyfer hamdden hefyd, fynd am dro i fynd i'r ganolfan hamdden yn Pwllheli. Tydi'r cysylltiadau bysys trafnidiaeth gyhoeddus ddim yn ffantastig acw. Mae toriadau mewn gwasanaethau gyhoeddus wedi golygu bod yna lai o bysys ar gael. A mae bysys yn gallu bod yn gyfynedig ar rhan amser ar y gorau. A mae pobl ifanc eisiau'r rhyddid yna i fynd mewn car a cael y cyfleoedd yna. Yn ystod y blwyddyn dwytha yma, fel y cymunedau sydd wedi siarad yn barod hyn yma, mae gennym ni gynllun hefyd lle oedden ni'n danfon negas a prescriptions i bobl o fewn yr ardal. Mae'n bosib iawn y byddwn ni yn gwneud hynny eto yn ystod y Gaea yma. Da ni hefyd efo cynllun anrhegion Nadolig, a dwi'n gweld Carwyn cael ei ddefnyddio fel carw Sion Corn wrach am bach o gyfnod i ddanfon y presanta yna o gwmpas. Mae gennym ni yn ystod yr ha, byddwn ni ffodus iawn hefyd i gael arian ar gyfer cyflogi 2 swyddog cynllun byw o bod trwy Menter Fôn Gyfleisi Gwynedd. Ac yn sgil y cynllun yna, mi wnaethwyd y cais grant yma am y Ceir Trydan, ond hefyd adnabod cyfleoedd i greu clwb gwaith, fforwm busnes lleol. A beth ni eisiau gwneud ydy plethu pethau yna i gyd i fewn i'r cynllun Ceir Trydan, fel bod ni'n cael y defnydd mwyaf ohono fo. I fyny rwan, dwi'n meddwl bod fi'n iawn Chris i ddweud bod yna dwsin o bobl wedi rhaid i enw ymlaen fel gwirfoddolwyr, a mae yna'n gychwyd yr eitha. A bod yn onast, da ni ddim wedi dechrau hysbysebu o ddifri eto. Da ni wedi trio cyfrestru bobl tha fi sydd wedi ddiwedd ffeindio bod i leinsians nhw wedi rhedeg allan 7 mlynedd yn ôl. Mae sy'n rwan yn gorfod mynd am dynnu llun a pethau felly cael leinsians newydd. Dyna ddim yn help. Ond dwi'n meddwl bod yna bobl chydig bach mwy cyfrifol a fi o gwmpas y pentre yma diolch beth sydd efo leinsians gyfredol arnyn nhw. Un o'r pethau da ni'n edrych ymlaen fwyaf ohono fo ydy gweld y car yn cael ei ddefnyddio wrth gwrs, a gweld pobl ifanc yn arbennig yn cael defnydd o mynd yn ôl i'r gwaith. Un peth arall da ni wedi yn sydyn iawn, a na i offer ar hyn, un peth arall da ni wedi gwneud ydy sbio ar motorbikes trydan. Ac mae yna gwmni'n Pwys da ni wedi bod mewn cysylltiad efo nhw. Achos mae prynu car trydan wrach yn mynd i fod yn broses reit drud i unrhyw un, ond mae motorbikes trydan yn arbennig i bobl ifanc wrach yn rhywbeth mwy deniadol. Mae gennym ni ddiddordeb wrth symud ymlaen wrth edrych ar posibilrwydd o gael beic trydan yn brawd neu chwaer bach i Carwyn. Symud ymlaen. Dyna ni ddigwydd.
Ie, diolch yn fawr Llyr. So wedyn Benygroes, Ben, Greta, ydych chi eisiau sôn am beth ydych cynlluniau chi?
Ie, dwi'n mynd i'r siarad, Ben. Dwi'n gwybod Ben. Greta, dwi o Siop Griffiths, swyddog datblygu marchnata yn Benygroes. A da ni wedi cael Carwen am flwyddyn. Felly nathon ni wneud y cais ar gyfer cael y car am flwyddyn, a da ni'n hynod ddiolchgar a cyffroes o gael derbyn y car. Mae o'n gyfnod cyffroes iawn. O ran yr heriau yn yn ardal ni, beth ni wedi weld ydy bod, fel oedd Llyr yn dweud, diffyg trafnidiaeth cyhoeddus yn anffodus i'r pentrefi o gwmpas Benygroes. Hynny yw, mae'n anodd teithio o amgylch yr ardal. Enghraifft, mae'n amhosib mynd lawr o Rhydd i Dinas Dinlla sy'n bechod, dyn nhw ddim yn bell o'i gilydd lle. Ond hefyd mae'n anodd teithio o'r pentrefi i'r trefi hefyd, Caernarfon, Bangor lle. So byddwn ni'n gobeithio efo'r car ydy gallu rhyw ffordd datrys y broblem yna os ydy pobl angen defnyddio'r car i fynd i lefydd eraill bod nhw'n gallu gwneud. Da ni'n bwriadu annog pobl leol i ddefnyddio'r car ar gyfer defnydd personol, mynd i weithio neu mynd i siopa fel oedd Hyw yn sôn gyna. A profi bobl bod hi'n bosib defnyddio car trydan, bod o ddim yn rhywbeth i fod ofn neu rhywbeth sy'n costio lot, achos mewn gwirionedd mae o y gwrthwyneb rili. Mae'n reis resymol o ran cost i redeg y car. Da ni yn gobeithio fyd trio addysgu pobl ifanc yn benodol a plant yr ardal. Da ni wedi siarad yn barod ynglyn â mynd o gwmpas yr ysgolion efo'r car, jyst a rhoi profiad i blant a phobl ifanc i weld sut mae'n gweithio a wedi'r buddion ohono fo lle. Achos dwi'n meddwl, dydy pawb ddim yn ymwybodol bod ceir trydan yn bodoli yn wedig plant lle. Felly dwi'n meddwl sa hwnna reis gyffroes. A hefyd, da ni wrthi'n datblygu prosiect trafnidiaeth cymunedol sy'n canolbwyntio ar gysylltu gwirfoddolwyr efo unigolion hŷn neu bregus y gymuned. Wedyn mae'r gwirfoddolwyr yn ei gobeithio mynd i allu defnyddio'r car i dywys pobl, wel, gan obeithio bod ni'n cael lle efo Covid i apwyntiadau meddygol, siopa neu digwyddiadau cymdeithasol. A beth sy'n dda fyd ydy bod ni'n gallu cynnig hynny am bris teg, ratach na tacsi lle. A wedyn, nôl yn mis Mawrth pan nath y pandemig hitio, nathon ni gychwyn grŵp cefnogi fel rhan o'n gwaith. Felly, da ni wedi bod yn rhoi gwirfoddolwyr mewn cyswllt efo bobl hŷn y gymuned. Mae gennym ni dros 100 o wirfoddolwyr. A maen nhw wedi bod yn helpu nôl presgripsiwn, nôl siopa i bobl. Felly, wan, wel, mae'n hyd yn gwell achos fydden nhw'n gallu defnyddio'r car i wneud y jobsys bach yna. A da ni'n gobeithio annog pobl i rannu'r car fwy, yn hytrach na bod pobl yn mynd yn eu ceir eu hunan yn unigol i'r un lle. Mae'n bosib jyst rhannu lifft ydy, wel, mewn bywyd heb Covid illa. Ia, a mae'r prosiect jyst yn un gwych, so ni'n licio pwysleisio hynny a diolch yn fawr i chi am y cyfle. A mae o'n cyd-fynd efo'n ethos ni'n Siop Griffiths. Da ni yn trio bod yn fwy gwyrdd lle a da ni wedi cael paneli solar ar y to yn ddiwedd, wel, llynadd oedd hi? Dwi'n cofio pryd oedd hi, neu flwyddyn yma. A bonus bach ydy fydd y paneli solar yna yn cynhyrchu'r ynni i wefru'r car lle, so mae'n gret bod yr ynni yn adnewyddadwy. Ia, a fel y llyr yn dweud, da ni hefyd yn gobeithio cael tyfu ar ôl y prosiect yma, gobeithio cael beics ella, a pwy a wyr ella car yn hynna'n. Gan i weld sut mae'r flwyddyn yn mynd. Diolch.
Iawn, diolch fawr Greta. Da ni'n dechrau ymlaen gael gweithio hefo Llanaelhaearn a Benygroes yn y flwyddyn nesaf. Dechrau ymlaen i gael gweld sut fydd y car yn cael ei ddefnyddio gyn y cymunedau yma, gael gweld beth nhw'n ei ddysgu. So, yn ola wan, mae Glyn ac Amy yn mynd i fynd drost i rhai o'n chi sydd efo diddordeb mewn llogi'r ceir. Mae Glyn ac Amy jyst yn mynd i fynd dros chydig bach o'r camau ydych chi'n gorfod gwneud, sut ydych chi'n bod yn aelod o Go-Wheel, sut ydych chi'n mynd ar y wefan a felly. Mae Glyn ac Amy jyst yn mynd drwy'r camau yna efo chi rwan. A wedyn ar ôl hynny, gawn ni agor y llawr fyny i unrhyw gwestiynau.
Diolch Chris. Da ni efo slides. Pawb yn gallu gweld yna?
Ynddo, dwi'n gweld o.
Okay, cool.
Should we go to present?
Yep.
Cool, nice. So yeah, as Bruce just mentioned, hopefully all excited. Anyone who hasn't used a car already might be hopefully keen to go test it out. And yeah, just quickly run through what it involves. So just start off with what it costs. So there's a £5 payment to register with Co-Wheels, and then to hire the car out, it's £3 per hour. There's a discounted rate if you want to have it overnight, so it's £6, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m, and then it's £21 for 24 hours. What I'll highlight is, to get that kind of £5 registration price, you do need to use a discount code that is AGW20 highlighted on the page, because Co-Wheels' normal registration fee is £25, and they normally have a £5 monthly minimum spend. This discount code was a special agreement for this project, and that kind of waives that monthly minimum spend and also discounts the registration fee by £20, so it is just that £5 one-off fee. And then just go through, yeah, the process for deciding to register to booking it out. So we have a special registration page within the Co-Wheels site. So this is the link, and so please do use that rather than the general Co-Wheels registration page. So that's gwyneth.book.cowheels.org.uk. So once you're registered, you'll need to set up a driver profile, and for that you'll need your national insurance number and a driving license check code. There's a link within Co-Wheels for that, so don't worry about jotting that down. And yeah, and link a debit or credit card for future kind of bookings. And yeah, then once your details are verified, you'll get a membership pack through the post, and you'll get a smart card key, so like kind of that green credit card type thing, which is in the top photo. And then when you book out the car for the duration of your booking, you'll be able to unlock the car by kind of presenting the card to that little kind of blue panel on the windscreen, which is cool.
And then once you're inside the car, there's no key to start it. Just being in the car with the smart card is all you need.
Yeah. And then for booking the car out, you log into your Co-Wheels account, enter your postcode, times, like the day and the time you want to book out a car for, and if you search, the two cars in Llanaelhaearn and Benygroes will come up as your nearest Co-Wheels car. And then so that's a little bit of a close-up there, and then click on the one you want, and then that's an example kind of confirmation booking page. So that's hiring the car out for 3 hours, so £3 at £3 an hour is kind of £9. Yeah, and once you're a member of Co-Wheels, you get access to all their cars around the UK. So if and when we're crossing the border, you could
we're allowed to again.
you could hire out one of their other vehicles. They do have quite a few hybrids as well as electric vehicles. It's kind of a real mix. So it's interesting to see that I already know that some members from the first year have used other Co-Wheels cars since, when they've been out and about around the country. So one other thing is that we've got special prices for the cars in for this project. So actually, really wanted it to be like kind of cheapen the kind of barriers for trying the car out. So with that £5 registration fee and hiring the car for an hour, that's going to be £8, which is quite really reasonable, and we think good value for money. Co-Wheels' other cars are more expensive than that per hour, so just to be aware of if you are looking at other ones. And yeah, just leave you on a nice photo of Carwyn and Carwen, kind of near Cada Idris, and that's the link if you didn't have a chance to note that down, and the discount code again. Yeah, I think that's it.
So os da chi unrhyw cwestiynau amdan Cave Electric, if you've got any questions about electric cars, we're happy to answer them. We've been driving electric cars in North Wales, across the UK for quite a number of years now. So happy to. So just share that with us. Good, dyna gyd.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr, Gwynedd Amy. So ie, fel Gwynedd Amy yn sôn, os ydych chi ddim yn barod wedi cofrestru efo cwyls ŵan, a bod chi yn bwriadu gwneud, gnewch o cyn gyntaf â phosib, achos mae'n cymryd chydig bach o ddyddiau i'r cardyn gyrraedd y ty chi. So ie, swn i'n annog pob i gymeryd rhan yn y prosiect. So ie, swn i'n agor y llawr fyny wan i cwestiynau. Ydych chi efo unrhyw gwestiynau i unrhyw un o pobl sydd wedi siarad heno yma. Yn gweld bod yna chydig bach o sgwrsio wedi bod yn mynd ymlaen yn y chat. Ie, unrhyw gwestiynau?
Cwestiwn i Glyn, Rhys, ag Amy. Ar ran pwyntiau gwefru, mae yna dipyn o waith efo'r cable, ac yn bell da ni, wyt ti'n meddwl, o gael system chargio neu gwefru sydd yn contactless?
So, da chi'n meddwl amdan gallu gwefru'r car heb gofod plygio fo fewn? Dyna beth da chi'n meddwl?
Yeah.
So, wireless charging. Yeah. So, mae yna systems, da chi'n gallu gael systems sy'n ffitio ar cave. Y problem ydy, mae installio charge point yn digon o her yn ei hun efo funud, ond os da chi'n gwybod digio fyny'r ffordd i rhoi charging pad i fewn i'r car i gallu gwefru wirelessly. Mae hynna'n rhoi y cost i fyny yn reit uchel. Dwi'n yn siŵr os bydd ni'n mynd lawr ffordd yn y dyfodol. Efallai dwi'n meddwl bydd o'n opsiwn gweit dda i pobl sydd ddim efo lle parcio personol, lle fy'n gweld parcio efo stryd, a efallai bod cable ddim yn opsiwn gorau yn y ardal yna. Ond ie, wbath sydd yn, dwi'n meddwl bydd o'n dod yn y dyfodol. Ond yr actual logistics, dwi'n meddwl actually rhoi y taclyn i fewn ydy'r main problem, ond gofod actually digio holl ffyrdd i fyny, mae'n quite gweld y waith.
O'n i'n meddwl sef o fwy fel fatha mat bron iawn ar ben y tarmac. Mae'n hytrach na sa'ch ti'n gorfod tyllu'r tarmac i fyny.
Mae yna di bod trials arnyn nhw, gallu gweld ar-lein. Mae nhw'n usually rhoi i fewn yn y tarmac, cos os mae jyst yn eistedd ben, mae'n obviously yn vulnerable i pethau eraill mynd drosto fo, so rhaid efo bod i fewn yn y tarmac. A ydych chi'n gorfod parcio precisely y lle iawn, ond mae technoleg yn bod. I cael ei deployo eto, really.
Diolch, Glyn.
Dwi'n gweld mae llaw fyny gyn Paul. Paul, eisiau ddweud.
Diolch. Eto ynglyn ar y pwyntiau gwefru, dau beth, o'ch chi wedi sôn am y rhai cyflym iawn hanner cant, ond wrth gwrs dydy pob car ddim yn gallu defnyddio y rhain, felly mae angen rhai ochr yn ochr sydd yn gallu gwneud y 22 kilowatt, fel bod pob car felly yn gallu gwefru. A'r ail gwestiwn ydy o ran talu amdanyn nhw, mae llawer o pwyntiau gwefru, mae angen app ar ffôn clyfar, eto gan pawb ddim ffôn. Felly dwi'n meddwl efo rhai cymunedol fel Trydan ni, bod eisiau sicrhau fod yn bosib defnyddio cerdyn debyd neu cerdyn credyd, bod chi'n gallu talu amdanyn nhw felly heb orfod bod ag app, achos mae gwahanol cwmnïau a wedyn maen nhw i gyd eisiau chi lawrlwytho i api hun. So mae'n mynd yn reit gymleth hyd yn oed i bobl sydd yn perchen ar ffôn clyfar. So mae eisiau gwneud mor syml sy'n bosib i bobl allu talu am y trydan.
Ie, mae hwnna'n wir. Ni'n cydweithio gyda cwmnïau nawr. Yr unig rai ni moyn wneud yw rai contactless card payments. Fel chi'n gweud, achos mae'r apps yn poenus ydyn nhw'n bell waith. Ond y rai rapid sy'n ganol Gymru, maen nhw'n gyd ar foment BP Charge Master. So mae rhaid cael rwy sort o cardi i defnyddio reina. Mae rhaid ymuno gyda cwmni na.
Ar ôl diwedd y mis hwn, bydd BP Charge Master Polar, maen nhw'n upgradeio bob un pwynt dros y gwlad i gyd i gallu contactless debit cards. So, yn y dyfodol, bydd bob un rapid charger yn contactless, so mae'n mynd yn haws.
Ydy.
Hynny yn newyddion da iawn, dwi'n falch o glywed.
Wedi bod 9 flwyddyn poenus trial gweithio popeth mas, ond ni jyst yna. Un peth o'n i'n meddwl, un peth oedd wedi dylefu mas pan dechreuais i gyrru, efallai bod chi gyd yn gwybod hyn cyn dechrau, ond pan chi'n mynd mewn y car y tro cynta, mae rhaid gwasgu'r brec pan chi'n dod i fe arno. Os chi'n just dod i fe arno heb gwasgu'r brec, mae'r golau gyd dod lan, ond so fe'n gyrru. So, bych chi'n eistedd yn y maes parcio am hanner awr trial gweithio fe mas. Fi'n siŵr bydd Glynau yn mynd helpu dy bethau fel hyn.
Ie, cyn pwyso, pan chi'n mynd i mewn i'r car, efo goriad, da chi'n mynd i fewn, pwyso brec efo pedal, a then pwysio bwtwm power troi car ymlaen.
Tro cyntaf ges i'r Citroen, oedd wedi dod ar bac lori o Bristol. A o'n i yn y driveway am dyddiau trial cael ei dechrau. Oedd neb gwybod. Ond, so, jyst trial helpu chi osgoi hwnna.
Ie, mi o'n na bach. Mi sylwi bod yna lot o broblemau bach fel ar ddechrau'r prosiect blwyddyn dwytha. Dwi'n gwybod pan nes i mynd i'r car tro gynta, o'n i'n meddwl bod yna fath yn bod, efo gan bod yna mor ddistaw. Ie. Ffonio cwyl sy'n meddwl bod yna fath yn bod, ond ddistaw y car.
Fantastic.
Mae yna un cwestiwn. Jane, I think you put your hand up. Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to ask a question about the distribution of the car schemes, because we could see from the ZAP map in the presentation how sparse the distribution of charge points was in mid-Wales. And one of the things we discovered from the Abergynolwyn experience is that because we have very limited existing community infrastructure here, we encountered problems at the beginning of the project that maybe some other better developed areas might not have encountered in quite the same way. So it took us longer to get onto the starting blocks, not in terms of the scheme itself, but in terms of the organisational capacity to run the scheme, because we're less well resourced, we've got a lower skill base, we've got less technology in some other places. So I'm just thinking that going forward, if we're going to try and have an even playing field and a wide distribution, and if we're going to reach the areas that are the most remote and the most needy, I think we need to think about how we build that support in for organisations at the beginning, and some organisations will need more support. I mean, I think that's one of the issues we had. We didn't manage it well, you know, and I've written a sort of review about our scheme, which, you know, I'm happy to send to people if anyone wants to see it. But it's different from the review that you did, which I thought was excellent. But this one's more about the community side of things and the community infrastructure side of things. And I do think we need to think about that. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a concentration of cars and charging points in areas that have already got them. And those areas that haven't are just going to get left further and further behind.
Well, it's a really good point, because one of the purposes of Trydani is that, in my view, the Welsh Government is waiting for the commercial operators to come into Wales. And the last 9 years have showed that there isn't much appetite for them to come into Wales because of grid issues and what have you. And 40% of Welsh homes don't have off-road parking. So in the Welsh valleys, in the cities and in other communities. So hopefully by developing Trydan, and it's a hope at the moment, we can't be guaranteed that we'll get there. We can address the issues that you say now to the less attractive areas. Well, one thing we would need before we could install charge points is guaranteed use, because there's no point building charge points as we have in some places, and then they get used once a month. You know, you just lose your money. So if there was a community that showed enthusiasm to get cars, electric cars, or if there was a taxi firm that wanted to use electric cars, or a project like this, a car share scheme, then that would be a really good place to put a charge point in.
Almost all of those charge points you can see on the map, nearly all of them have been installed by commercial companies. There hasn't really been any coordination from the Welsh Government as to where those points go on the map. It's just companies choosing. I guess they choose the most commercially viable locations, and those happen to be along major roads on the north and south and in England. But I think it's what we're trying to do with a project like this, and what Neil is doing with Trydan, is trying to give opportunities to other to other communities to experience the vehicles, and hopefully that'll lead to more uptake.
Yeah, the commercial operators have something called a commercial viability matrix. So they look at traffic flow and the ownership of electric vehicles. So we're developing one site in the next few months in Mid Wales. I can't disclose just yet. And it's the worst score that the commercial operator's ever seen. So when we do install the rapid charge point, we're going to have to ask you all to turn up in your electric cars and use it to prove that there is a need in Wales.
It's a bit chicken and egg, this though, isn't it? Because I mean, I think with the scheme like the co-wheel scheme that we've taken part in, you've kind of got to target the least accessible places in order for them to learn how to do this. And if it's like, as you're saying, really, if we only rely on the commercial companies to do it, it's never going to happen. And I think the other thing is that perhaps when we're planning this scheme in the future, we need to build in resources, not just for buying the car and buying the infrastructure, but also for building the capacity of the local groups to run it as well. Because I think if we'd had that capacity building at the beginning, we would have been able to take advantage of the scheme much more effectively right from day one. But by the time we learned that, we'd kind of missed the opportunity. So, I think it's not just about the technology, it's also about the people skills as well.
Yeah, that would be too hard on yourself. I mean, certainly from an outsider's point, looking at you seem to manage it pretty well. You had a Facebook group for the for the car hire, which was actually fantastic. The amount of engagement you had on the Facebook group, and everyone sharing their experiences using the car. I think other groups will learn from that. So as a first step, I think it was certainly a success, at least for the COVID issue.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, llaw chi hwnna?
Ia, mae'n anodd gofyn I gymuned roi gwarant o ddefnydd oherwydd dych chi ddim yn defnyddio pwynt gwefru yn eich cymuned eich hun. Hynny ydi, dwi'n gwefru'n heiri wrth yn hi, a wedyn y pwynt o gwefru dwi'n defnyddio ydy'r rhai pell pan dwi'n mynd ar deithiau pell. So mae'n anodd gofyn I gymuned roi gwarant, achos dych chi'n y cwsmeriaid ydy pobl sy'n pasio trwy'r ardal yn hytrach na pobl sy'n byw yna tydi.
Na phan mae'n mor bwysig I wneud siŵr bod e'n codi elw i'r cymuned. So, achos yr un o'n i'n dangos yn y slide yn Excel bowl, mae'r tair rownd yna, maen nhw'n gyd a driveways a garages. So mae'n cael defnyddio, ni wedi codi bwyty 70 punnau dros flwyddyn, mae Covid hefyd, Tiwod, a ni wedi bysoddi 10,000 i dod i fe mewn, neu 7,000 neu beth oedd e. So ni'n gallu gwneud llawer o'r reina os mae neb yn defnyddio nhw. So mae rhaid pigo'r sefyllfa cywir cyn bysoddi.
Ie, dwi'n siŵr bod y dyfodol bydd na mwy o pobl yn cael Ceir Trydan sydd ddim efo parcyn personol, so bydd nhw yn gwneud mwy o defnydd o pwyntiau gwefru yn y cymuned.
Fi'n becso beth sy'n digwydd hefyd. Mae Lloegr, dde dwyrain Lloegr yn symud ymlaen dy Ceir Trydan, a llawer o dinasau fawr yn Lloegr a'r Alban. A bydd y diesels i gyd dod i Gymru i byw. Bydd y llygredd air yn Gymru yn eitha rhyfeddol dros yr 20 mlynedd nesaf, really, achos na ble mae'r Rover 75s dod i marw.
So unrhyw un arall efo cwestiynau? Now we want question James. After this next 12 months, are there plans to explore further funding to maintain EVs in North Wales communities? Mae'r prosiect yn ei weithio yn ymwan yn mynd i ddod i ben yn mis Hydref 2021. A wedyn, fel nes i sôn o dechrau, holl bwrpas arloesi ydy bod ni'n aelota treialu y defnydd o'r car Trydan Cymunedol yma mewn ardaloedd gwledig fel Gwynedd. Felly dwi'n meddwl be nawn ni ar ôl i'r 2 blynedd yma ddod i ben ydy casglu y data i gyd, gweld be ni wedi ddysgu allan o'r prosiect. Wedyn gobeithio gallu rhannu hwnna wedyn hefo cymunedau ar draws Cymru sydd isio cychwyn clwb ceir i hunan yn ei ardaloedd nhw. Felly ar hyn o bryd, ni jyst yn canolbwyntio ar trio dysgu gymaint ydyn ni'n gallu allan o'r prosiect 2 blynedd yma. Pasio hynna, mae'n bosib fydd na rhywbeth yn codi, fydd na ryw, ella fydd na brosiect arall yn codi, ond ar y funud sgen i ddim atab pendant i hwnnw.
Just to comment on James's question about the maintaining EVs, I could put you in touch, James, with B&K Williams in Carwyn that I've been in close communication with, and so I've been pushing them a bit on EVs, and they're really forward thinking now. That they've now got some engineer technicians there trained up to work on EVs, and they've joined the HEVRA, which is the Independent EV Garage Association. And since joining that HEVRA group, they've found they've had lots of electric vehicles being brought to them from quite a way all over the area. So there's certainly a demand for independent garages, and they're really happy with how it's going. They've launched like an EV Pacific website. They did their first like battery, high voltage battery upgrade swap very recently. So it's quite an exciting time for them. I'm sure it would be great to get other garages on board, and they could share what they've learned in Carwyn with other garages in Mid Wales.
Iawn. Wel, dwi'n sbio ar yr amser rwan, gweld bod ni wedi mynd bach drosodd na be oeddwn ni wedi bwriadu, lle. Ond, os ydych chi efo unrhyw mwy o gwestiynau, dwi wedi reid e-bost i yn y chat, rhys@mentormon.com. Os ydych chi'n meddwl am unrhyw gwestiwn arall a'ch ofyn am yr prosiect, neu ella i'r siaradwyr, mi fedra i rhoi chi mewn cyswllt efo nhw. So diolch yn fawr i chi gyd am gymryd amser i ymuno hefo ni heno yma. Diolch yn fawr i'r siaradwyr hefyd, wedi bod yn ddiddorol iawn. Felly jyst cadwch lygad allan ar be fydd Antur Llanaelhaearn a Siop Griffiths yn ei wneud efo'r ceir yn y flwyddyn nesaf. A dyna ni, rili. Diolch yn fawr.